Must be causing some interference on the line.
Yeah. Crystal clear now.
Excellent. Well, that's good. And maybe that explains why I can pick up.
Yeah, maybe. Right. Well,
the joys of Skype.
Yes.
Yeah. I need that Bluetooth connector, but I'll sort that out later. It's my little Bluetooth LE one. I'm using for a couple of things.
Well, it sounded nice and clear. So, Jason and Gary, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And loud and clear coming through without the Bluetooth earpiece on.
Well, it wasn't the Bluetooth earpiece. That was actually pretty good. It was obviously my little Bluetooth dongle I was using to talk to it. So we've gone hardwired now, anyway.
Yeah. So, well, we've got plenty to talk about tonight. We've got an email in asking about Windows Media Center, something we haven't talked about for a while. We've got new builds. We've got more mobile news since we last recorded, not so good. We've got rumors of a new Xbox or Xbox devices coming, so we've got quite a lot to go through this week.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So we'll start off with Windows 10 build news. So first of all, we should say, as we record on Tuesday evening, there isn't a build out today, is there?
Not a new build for the fast rings, anyway.
No.
There's a slow build, but as we said,
yes.
that doesn't count for our challenge.
No, that doesn't count. It just means maybe I did make the right choice installing it after all.
Yes. So
I'm officially on the slow ring anyway.
So you on the slow ring now?
No, I'm still actually set onto the fast ring, but the build that I had so many issues with battery draining issues, they released a fix. Which I can't remember. I think that was after the show last week, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
They released the point release 1004.
1004. Yeah.
Which was specifically to address the heat issues. So, being the cautious type that I am, I installed that onto my 930, and it's been brilliant. It's working really, really well. So no heat issues. Battery life's been kind of atypical for the 930, which is a bit of a battery beast, but. I think the only issue I've got, which is the same as the desktop build, Ian, which we've been kind of talking about on Twitter, is the lack of Cortana.
Yes. So we'll talk about that. So aside from the mobile build, since we recorded last week, there was one build of Windows 10 for PCs, 14352.
Yeah, sorry, I've completely forgotten about that.
Yes. So actually, this slow ring build is actually then ties that with the previous slow ring of the desktop OS.
Yes.
So they're synced together but then now the PC is sort of one build ahead now, isn't it? Well, not one build number, but one release ahead. And like I said, this was quite a nice build. A few tying up things that they're tidying up, really, isn't it, as they get close to the release. So there's a few things around the Windows Ink and Cortana improvements, but the Cortana improvements aren't very good if you're in the or outside the US, or particularly in the UK.
Yeah, I still haven't got any Cortana. I can still do voice and whatnot, but no, it's definitely something's blocking it somewhere. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it is. But we did get, I was trying to pick his name, Jason Deakins, who's on the Cortana team, very kindly kind of chipped in and said, why don't you try changing your region to US and then back to UK? But I don't know about you, Ian, if you tried this, but I found even with my settings on US, I still wasn't getting any work, anything to work.
Well, I had multiple issues with it because, first of all, the device that's my own Core 8, which is all US English settings, is working fine. So no issues with that at all. On my Surface, it was all set to UK English. Obviously, it doesn't work like in the previous build, so you get no interest or anything like that. And you can't use the new English phrases that you can say to play music, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But
have you found if Hey Cortana's working for you? Because that's the other thing with me. That seems to be really intermittent.
Well, what I found is it's disappeared off. Cortana's disappeared off the lock screen. I don't know if you've had that as well, Jason.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's gone.
It's gone off the lock screen, and it's got the interests have gone. So I thought I'll change it over to US English for the sake of the video, the build video. But then my Surface won't install the US English language packs.
I've seen that as well.
It comes up with a 0x something error, and I've done the usual things. Delete the software catalog folder. or software distribution folder. It tries to bring them down again, and it wouldn't do it. So when I put my machine into US English, interests did come up, I think. I can get this right now, but I couldn't use Hey Cortana because the voice doesn't work. In fact, and my Surface has just come up, Hey Cortana, it's just spotted me saying Hey Cortana. So to answer that question, the voice input is working. Because the Surface has just picked up on it now.
It seems with mine, it seems to be really intermittent. I sometimes can say how Cortana it works, and just like now, I just said it and nothing's happened. And you expect it to. So it seems to be really intermittent.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I've lost interest in all those sort of stuff as well. So it's very poor for UK English people, but I guess they'll fix that going forward because they always have done on the past. It's always been US first.
They say on the previous build, they did say, I think it was that person that you were talking about, Jason, on the previous release, they did say it would be fixed in the next build, and that isn't the case.
It's true.
Yeah, but hopefully they can I'm sure they can work it out. I don't think they actually. I think until they've seen Jason's tweets, I don't think they really understood the problem.
Yeah, I think because I think initially they thought it was a build problem. Then he thought maybe, as we just talked about, switching to US and back to UK would be fine. But on my 930, which is on the 14342 build, isn't it? Hey Cortana is working, but interests aren't. But I can still use voice commands like call and what's where am I and things like that. Ask it questions and she does respond. But yeah, interests are completely gone. And I had the same with the 14342 desktop build, although they did come back for a while, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And then kind of disappeared again, and then put the FastSpring 14352 build on when that came out last week. And again, Cortana's not showing interests. No Cortana on the lock screen, although I did notice that the setting show Cortana on the lock screen was off. But I've since switched it back on, and it's still not there. So I think for whatever reason, whether or not they're changing some back end systems for the anniversary update, I don't know. But yeah, certainly it's very odd that it doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah. I'll just say hello to everybody in the chat room. I think Chip is in there and Richard Speed. So good evening, chaps.
Good evening.
Yeah, it does appear that it's the back end stuff, and the actual changes that they've made to the Hey Cortana, which for music, which don't work unless you're in the US English, but you can still play your music. But now, if you're in US English and you've got a Groove Music Pass, you can say, Hey Cortana, play Pink Floyd, and it'll just play Pink Floyd from the collection. You don't have to have it in your own personal library, which is quite good. And you can play a song, or you can do a playlist. And if you have it in UK English, it doesn't work. You can still play Pink Floyd, but it has to be in your local library, or your collection, I should say. The other new feature was Hey Cortana, set a timer for 10 minutes, and that these things work when I change the language. It's just I lost the interest in like I said, the language pack wouldn't download. I don't know why that wouldn't download. I couldn't really find a lot of solutions when I googled the problem. So
yeah, I must admit, I tried to do it on the MyLinks 8, and it did exactly the same.
Yeah.
Again, so I wonder if it's a space issue.
Yeah, I'm just looking. So because
well, I've got plenty of space on my Surface, but I just wondered if they weren't available for this build.
Yeah, it could be, I guess.
Because they have had sort of release notes, something they've known issues about downloading language packs and things.
Yeah. So I've got, when I go into settings, speech and language, I've got choice between English United Kingdom and English United States. So that's downloaded okay. And the region, my trackpad's not working since I worked my Surface Pro 3 up. It's working, but it's not taking the gestures and whatnot. Yeah, so in region language, I can choose, United Kingdom, United States, etc., etc. So yeah, although languages, I've still just got English. I didn't try and add the US language.
Yeah. Once you add US English and then enables text to speech, it then goes off and downloads language packs. But yes, not in my case. So other changes in this build were fairly minor. There's a compass in the on the ruler in Windows Ink, but I say it's not a real compass. It's just showing you when you've got the the ruler at sort of is set in 25-degree intervals, I think it is. So yeah, it'll be something like that. So yeah, and there was a few other things like you could do escape and to get out of the Windows Ink and a few other bits and pieces. But what? Oh yes, the did you see that the Windows File Explorer icon is back?
Yes.
Back to Manila.
I think that had a quite a strong reaction, didn't it?
Yeah, it's quite funny this, really, isn't it? Because no one really, it's just an icon, isn't it? I know what they're trying to represent, a sort of a metal filing cabinet with a folder in there and things like that. But no, it's like the floppy disk icon. No one really knows what they're for anymore. They've just become an icon in their own right, haven't they now?
Yeah.
But yeah, there was quite a lot. I wonder how many resources have been spent on switching these icons around. And Chippy, I'm not sure. Yeah, we did have some audio issues before. I can hear a bit of clicking, but nothing too bad. So I don't know whether Richard, you've got any issues with that? Let us know if you have. So yes, there was a lot of fixes in this build, and the known issues are getting smaller and smaller. Although I did notice that issues for Tweetium return as well, because you can't use the keyboard, can you, to navigate Tweetium or Netflix?
Well, you can't use the keyboard to navigate any Windows Store app.
Yes, I noticed that with Tweetium. Obviously, when I type in username and using tab to complete it, and it doesn't work at all. But yeah, that was called out in the release notes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty. You can see that we're getting closer and closer to release, and I did sort of wonder whether builds would slow down a bit. But I thought we might, get a few bug fix releases, but nothing today. But I think, Jason, you predicted tomorrow.
Yes, I noticed there was some news over the weekend about, particularly on mobile, with people losing the ring detection, because with the 14342 build on mobile, they've moved the insider settings into a specific settings, just like they did on the desktop build. And I think some people were reporting that they'd lost their ring setting, which I think got resolved over the weekend. I think I saw. So they did say that they weren't going to release them. Plus, they, like us, they had a long weekend. So I'm wondering whether or not we might see 14352 released to the fast ring. If not today, maybe tomorrow. Or we might just get a more up-to-date that will release for desktop and mobile at the same time. But yeah, I'm predicting tomorrow. That's my guess.
Well, there was, I think, one of the engineers sort of over the weekend tweeted that there would be a build could be on Tuesday. And then obviously there isn't a build today, and I was trying to find on Twitter, there was like a load of people putting sarcastic comments about builds, and I think I figured it back. I think it's because one of the sites must have put a Microsoft delays build release kind of post. And I think that got on the back of a few people.
Yes.
Yeah, Brendan didn't like that, did he?
Yeah.
Brendan didn't like that.
Yeah. No, so yeah, so but anyway, hopefully we'll get a new build tomorrow. But it's good to see that these release notes going down on the known issues shrinking on the PC side of it anyway, because I think they must be in lockdown mode now, aren't they, and just fixing the bug issues. Because I don't think we'll get many more builds now.
As I said last week in my prediction.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, if it follows the same pattern as previous Windows 10 updates, we shouldn't get too many more releases, because they do tend to go into this lockdown mode where they plow through the bugs and then release the next release, and you get one release a week basically, until they actually get it right, and it usually takes 4 or 5 releases.
And like we said, the on the mobile side of things, the battery fixes there that we talked about last week was being a real pain, so they did release that. So as I said to Brandon on Twitter, now everything's working, can we have a new build, please?
Yeah. I mean, those heat issues, as I said earlier, have definitely been resolved. The only little niggle I've got at the moment, which I noticed today when I need to play around with it and figure which one it was, but when it was docked in my wireless charging cradle while driving along, the screen kept going off and then coming back on again, and going off, like dimming, going off, coming back on again, in like a constant cycle. And I thought at first it was that it's the cradle, the arms that pinch the phone are right on top of where the camera button is. And I thought initially it was the camera, so I tried turning off using the camera button to wake the phone, but that didn't resolve it. But then today, what I've done is I've knocked the touch sensitivity down from high to normal, with the high setting being normally used for using the touch device with gloves. And I also turned off the double tap to wake, and driving home, the screen went off and stayed off all the way home. So I suspect it will be one of those two settings, but that's not something I've seen on the kind of threshold 2 build, but it might just be with the way the screen that the phone is gripped, whether or not they're just slightly touching the edge of the phone, and just causing it to permanently wake.
I mean, I have that in my Cradle in the car. If I push it too far down, it catches the camera button because the way the camera button is. So you just not to sort of slide it all the way down. But I have a problem with my 950 over the week, actually. Really slow charging on wireless charging. But not seem to have any battery drain issues, and I'm on the threshold 2 release. So I don't know what the issue is, but it kind of took 8 hours to charge. Overnight, you can see it was just getting to 100% in the morning, whereas normally it's a couple of hours and it's fully charged. So not quite sure what that was, but I still think on the threshold 2, I think there's still some unreliability in there that hopefully Redstone will fix.
Yes,
on the mobile side.
I think these things should kind of start moving on quite quickly now, shouldn't they?
Talking of mobile, I think it's been again not a brilliant week for Windows 10 Mobile and Microsoft's.
So are we talking about the big news of the week, where the someone in America has pulled out of Windows Mobile?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm talking about Josh Pollard here.
Yes. Well, I did see what Josh said, and that combined with the news that Microsoft they've shut down Lumia, haven't they? Essentially, for new devices, anyway, manufacturing of new devices.
Yeah, so they've completely sold off the manufacturing plants, haven't they? Which have been picked up by, interesting enough, the same company that Nokia on the same day announced they were subleasing their phone manufacturing to.
Yeah. So, Josh is a very good example of someone that's been a Windows phone fan for many years, and loves the OS, but it's like enough is enough, and this has kind of got me thinking. It's okay that the last few months we've been okay that Windows 10 mobile share has gone down, and we know that Windows 10 mobile is still being developed because it's just part of Windows. But does the news of this closed it down now, and Microsoft are looking at enterprises, mean that really there's now an issue with how they develop the OS for consumers? And does this affect Windows 10 itself, not just the PC, not just the mobile, but the PCs itself, because they're focused on enterprises? Does this mean that consumer features will be potentially cut or not developed for Windows in general?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. It's part of the debate I don't think has been had. It's difficult for Microsoft not to have consumer features, because if you actually look at the split on Windows, the actual install base, yes, it is highly enterprise driven, but it's still a large percentage of consumer devices out there. And consumer people, they've always had this thing of one on every desk, one in every home, because it drives the desktop adoption. If people are familiar with it at home, they'd use it in the workplace. And this is one of the dangers they've got at the moment, obviously, with iPads and Android tablets becoming prolific in the home, that people want to use them at work and are familiar with them. So it is familiarity. I mean, they say familiarity brings contempt, but in this case, it actually brings speed sales in the enterprise. So it's actually in their interest to maintain consumer usage, which is why the phone news is not actually that good for them. Although, having said that, if you actually look at what Microsoft generally been saying, and actually a lot of industry analysts have been saying about the phone market, that over the next few years, the phone market's going to morph more and more away from voice into being a computer in your hand. And whether smaller tablets are actually the Windows-based tablets are a way to go for that, I'm not sure, but I still don't think Windows Mobile is dead. I just think it's in a different place.
Yeah, it is difficult because I've been on, I used Windows Mobile before, and I've been on Windows Phone since Windows Phone 7, and I just love the experience. I love the tiles, and every time I think about moving away, I think about what I'll miss compared to what the other platforms offer. And for me, it is I would probably tend to lean towards going iOS and Apple. And yeah, every time I use the iPad, it's I just don't like the experience.
No.
I miss the live tiles. Apple still doesn't offer wireless charging, which is something I've just become so reliant on now. But at the same time, I do, have to start asking myself, am I just clinging onto this platform just because of an emotional attachment rather than, as I have a terrible history of without even realizing it, compromising with the technology that I use just because my heart kind of leads. And when you see what other people could do on their platform, you kind of realize just, what you're compromising, because it's going to be really difficult for Windows 10 Mobile to offer a mobile payments platform that's going to get any kind of traction. You've got Apple Pay, which is pretty much everywhere almost instantly. Android Pay, which is starting to take off in the UK now, and there was this massive announcement of Windows Phone 8 how the mobile payment system was going to be built into the phone. It wasn't going to be reliant on third parties. And we've had this wallet feature for what, 3-4 years now, and it just hasn't taken any kind of traction. I think the closest I've got is I can pay for apps using my mobile my mobile provider. Mobile billing, sorry. Thanks, Ian. But it is like, for example, this is a very small example in many ways. We talk about the Sonos app. We were upstairs and early in the morning and woke up, and my wife said, pop some music on while the kids are getting dressed and everything. And I went, I can't, I've got my Windows phone. And I know there are third party apps, but it's just really little things like that started to make me realize, as much as I love this platform, and the thought of giving it up still is going to be a big wrench. And I feel like giving it up, I'll actually be doing the thing that I'm trying to avoid, which is I think I'll be compromising in the early days. So it's really difficult, because I just love those live tiles. I know they're very Marmite, but that defines the mobile platform for me. And I just love having apps. I love being able to switch on and see weather for the next 5 days on my home screen, and see that see emails, see news headlines.
I know people could would argue and do argue that you could do a lot of that on Android. Certainly with certain home screens. But I suppose I'm quite a good example here, because I carry every type of phone. Because for work, I'm developing on Android, I'm doing on iOS, I'm even developing on BlackBerry occasionally. But I still prefer the Windows Phone experience. I still use that as my daily driver. And that's not because I don't tend to develop very much with Windows 10 these days. I mean, that's the definite thing I've seen in the last 6 months, that peak we were starting to get some take up on in terms of UK companies, particularly developing Windows Phone, has dropped off again, and a lot of that's been down to negative publicity. A lot of the times I talk to them, they say, well, it's a dead platform, because people are telling them it's a dead platform. And it wasn't a dead platform. And in percentage terms, it's still not a dead platform in the UK. It's still got quite a high percentage uptake. But it's a platform which is no longer supported by its main hardware manufacturer. Now, that actually could be a good thing, because one of the things which has stopped certain third parties getting into the Windows Phone market is they've said, well, there's no point. People only buy Nokias, or people only buy Microsoft phones, because they think they're getting the full first-party experience. Now, if they're not there, that actually may allow some of these lower-cost manufacturers to come in more. I mean, I reviewed the Bosch Luma a couple of months back. That's a brilliant phone for the price. And you could see other manufacturers getting in and coming in at that level. But whether they will, because Android is now, the pricing of Android's dropped for them as well, so it may be less attractive to do that. But sometimes people need a differentiator, and I mean, you can certainly see it with people like HP coming in with the enterprise side of stuff. That area is an area ripe for taking. Is you can say to you, we can now supply a whole platform for you across, and you can run all your business apps on all these things with one team writing them. That has a lot of attractiveness to it. On the other hand, with the Xamarin purchase, that's kind of gone away because you can now develop for Android and for iOS without having those problems. So it's a very difficult and tricky thing to predict, and I'm glad I'm not an analyst because I don't think I could actually predict this the way this is going at the moment.
Chippy says it makes a good point that really is this a blow for UWP and the universal platform, the fact that that consumers and on the phone side of things doesn't matter about UWP. So does that mean that people won't develop Windows 10 apps in general? And as you know, more people use iOS and Android and everything else, or is it the fact that Microsoft knew that this was coming, and hence why Windows 10 mobile is a SKU of Windows 10? Otherwise, because if it was a separate OS, I would imagine they wouldn't develop for it at all anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing which can drive people to develop UWP is more the Xbox and HoloLens.
I think
that was always going to be the case. The difficulty for me as a developer is it's a hell of a lot easier to develop a Xamarin Forms app than it is to develop a UWP app. And I would actually like to develop using Xamarin Forms for Windows 10. And have it churn out a UWP app at the end. And they've got something wrong there if it's that difficult. It's supposed to be an easy platform to develop for.
Yeah.
And it's not at the moment. There's lots of challenges when you try to do a UWP app, which shouldn't be there. So I think it's a difficult world to be in at the moment as Microsoft on that side. I think they've got it right though in terms of actually having one development environment for the whole lot. That makes a lot of sense. I think they've just got to look at it a little bit and work out. And hopefully, with some of the Xamarin team going in, which has definitely had a mindset change, I think, in certain places, that might actually help a bit.
I mean, I totally understand Josh's reason for abandoning a platform, and I think, I did ask him whether or not he was evaluating that based on particular missing features or kind of just being fed up with the platform, whether or not he was gauging that based on the Redstone 2 releases, the Redstone 1 releases. And I was kind of glad when he responded actually that it's not that, because I think it's really easy to become disillusioned when you're running beta versions of the OS that have got bugs and whatnot. And I was pleased that that's not the reason that he's moving off. But I can certainly understand. I think for me, ultimately, at the moment, like I say, Sonos is starting to become a bit of a pain point. But for me, it's going to be, I think it'll be time to go when the apps I do need that do exist go, like my banking app, if that was to go. We've just
PayPal's just gone, hasn't it?
Yeah. Although it's not something that I make a big use of. Yeah. And the other one would be, I think, having just shifted across to Spotify. If that Spotify app became unavailable, I think obviously then I think it would really be time to go. But it would be nice, for example, to go out for the day with the kids to Legoland and actually be able to install, the Legoland app, which if you've got an Apple or an Android device, you can just do. And I've seen adverts with the Windows Store logo on it. I'm trying to think of a good example, but I did see one just the other day, and it was nice to see that logo there. But it's so few.
It's rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the thing is, and it's changed really almost. It's changed in the few years that I've gone from Android. So what we're talking 2 years, where iOS, it was assumed that there was always be an iOS app, and that's always been the case, hasn't it? But and some of the time there was an Android app, perhaps most of the time. But in the intervening period, it's now really where there's always an Android app, there's always an iOS app, and there's sometimes a Windows 10 mobile app, but not very often now.
Actually, sometimes there isn't an iOS app nowadays. There's a lot of Android first development going on.
And the dilemma that Josh has is exactly what I've been thinking, and what you said, Jason. How long is it before you effectively cutting your nose off to spite your face, almost just on principle? When you go to Legoland or you go to Disney or you go to a hotel or something where they've got an app to do whatever you want it to do, and or a fast food place or whatever it is, there's always an app, and there's very rarely a Windows 10 one. And I think I'm coming to the same thoughts as Josh. Actually, I've ordered a Nexus 6, because I saw one cheap. So I've got one of those coming. So I'm going to see what happens if I try and recreate my current experience on the Nexus 6 and see if there really is a difference.
Yeah.
And I have to carry both devices.
I've tried that for some time now. I've been using. I carry a Galaxy S5 anyway for app demos, and I've tried to set that up to mimic my Windows experience, and I haven't succeeded yet. But it is getting easier. I mean, there are definitely newer stuff on Android which helps.
A good example would be the notifications coming through.
Yes.
From Android via Cortana. That works really well, and it doesn't work at all on Windows 10 mobile.
And I think the big problem is really, being realistic. I think we're looking at 12, maybe 24 months before the Windows 10 mobile or the UWP platform really gains any sort of traction to start attracting developers back. And as Jimmy says in the chat room, the announcements about Chrome OS being able to run all Google Play apps in a nice sandbox restricted environment. If Google come up with a way to do that within the Chrome OS browser, so that essentially Windows 10 can run Chrome OS Google Play apps, then that's a big knife in it, I think.
Yeah, and like Chippy's saying, his local transport, public transport, they have an Android and iOS app. So if you want to manage your ticket, then you need to get the app. And there's a lot of things like that. Yes, often there's a mobile version, a web-based mobile version, which does work. I don't think last time, it was a couple of years ago since I was at Disney Park, but I think they had I can't remember what they call it, fast track, on the app, so you can choose your rides and things. And there was an iOS and an Android app. There wasn't a Windows one, but you could use the web browser on the phone, and that was okay. But it puts it off. It puts off consumers, certainly, that every time you go into somewhere and there's a sticker that says download on Google Play or download on the App Store, iOS App Store, even if they've got a Windows app, they don't advertise it.
Yeah, that is a problem. It's I think it's going to come up on time, and I'm interested to see. And I know Josh and Richard talked about this after my email to them, that whether or not I was waiting for the Surface Phone just because it was going to, just because it was a Surface Phone, but it's not really. It's more just to see what features that hardware has to offer, and see, for example, if it has something like a fingerprint reader, which is something that I'd still prefer over the Retina scanner. But I think that would possibly be my last Windows phone, I think, unless something big happens.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, which device gets the main SIM card in between the Nexus 6 and which hasn't got wireless charging, but I didn't want to go to the expense of a Galaxy S7 or anything like that. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Android. You end up paying an awful lot of money to have the same equivalent as you currently get. So it's very difficult. I mean, I'm really interested in seeing what the HP comes out like when they actually do really get it out, and if it's as good as it seems to be on paper. I mean, that probably will be my next Windows phone. If I was to get rid of the 950, but I think that it is difficult, and it is becoming more difficult to stay in this thing. And I totally understand Josh's decision, because if you're being out in the States a few weeks back, there's no support for Windows Phone on any of the apps there, and at least here we've got some apps. So like you've still got your banking app, Josh, but Josh just hasn't got that. He hasn't got any of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, another example. I mean, I'm going to Le Mans in a couple of weeks, and the live timing app is iOS and Android.
Yeah, and that's true in Europe a lot. It's becoming a lot more difficult in Europe to find apps, and I think also this last week's announcement has basically destroyed the market in a couple of countries, because they're not going to support some of the low-end phones at all now, and that's the only phones which sold in Italy, in Spain, and all and certainly in Latin America. And I mean, they're pulling out of India, they're pulling out of Brazil, big markets. Brazil was a particularly big market, so I think there's a definite going to be a move away even from the support which was there.
Yeah, funny for Chippy says, and at least you'll have FM radio and Radio Le Mans. That's one good thing about the Windows Phone is you can pick up the live commentary using the FM radio, which
Yeah.
we talked about. Even
Yeah.
though the Microsoft are pulling the app, it
Yeah.
still works, and you can't do that on an Android phone. So I'll be taking both phones with me, and we'll see which
Yeah.
one lasts longer.
It has got crazy at the moment because I do carry two phones all the time. I carry a Windows phone and I carry an Android phone. And I carry the Android phone mainly for the demos, but also for a couple of other things which like the Pebble Watch synchronization. But I know there were really good reasons why they pulled the Android emulator on Windows Phone, but
It would have saved it, wouldn't it, for us?
yeah, it would have
Just
saved
for us,
Yeah,
maybe.
it would, I would say. Well, I think it would have saved it in general in the market. It wouldn't have been a happy story for Windows Phone's developers because it would have taken away the one reason to exist. But I think if they'd done that at the same time as acquiring Xamarin, would that have been a different story?
Yes, true. Yeah, yeah. It developed once.
Yeah.
But it would have placated certainly maybe Josh, me, and like Jason. You know, it would have been perhaps enough, even if you had to sideload them, sideload apps as well. But it wouldn't have made much difference to the general consumers, would it?
No, but it would have made it more easier to sell a Windows Phone to a general consumer.
Yeah, true. And Chippy's saying, is it emulator or bridge? You're talking emulation, aren't you? Where you can get an APK.
Yeah, I mean,
an APK.
they called it a bridge, but it wasn't an emulator, basically. I mean, I did see stories of a bridge as well at one stage, but obviously the iOS bridge still exists and people have used it. But the problem with bridges is there's no encouragement to use them. You still got to do work. If you don't have to do work, it's a lot easier to sell it to companies.
I mean, the good thing is that the UWP platform means that if a developer chooses that, then the Windows 10 isn't on the mobile side isn't dead. It's just another SKU, and it's going to keep getting new builds and new releases, and we're going to see new versions of apps, first-party apps and third-party apps that are targeting Windows 10 in general. So that'll be okay.
This is one of the things I was saying about UWP being difficult, because they've got to make UWP easier to do it, so that when people do a Windows 10 desktop app, they get the mobile app for free effectively, whereas now they have to actually put quite a bit of work in to do that.
Yeah, you want that. You want it so if Sonos get on with it, they produce a new desktop app and the mobile version's free with it.
Yeah, exactly. And at the moment, it's difficult to do that, and it shouldn't be. It should be easier than it is currently.
Yeah.
I know I'll get a lot of kickback on that, an argument from my fellow desktop Windows developers, because some of them who love UWP. But I still think if you take a developer who's not used it before in any shape or form, so take someone who's used WPF, the old style desktop development tool using XAML, and trying to make them do a UWP app, and you see them squirm and struggle. It's a scary thing. But
and of course the other thing as well is I think Microsoft know that this is happening, and they're realistic about it, and that's why they have very good apps for iOS and Android. So you can get Microsoft Health app, you can get Excel, Word, Groove, OneDrive, all these services work across all devices. And then when Microsoft say mobile first, cloud first, they don't mean Windows 10 mobile first. They mean mobile in general.
I think the biggest thing which could happen, and I hope it's a merger one way rather than the other way, but I half suspect we'll have UWP for Xamarin soon. So you buy a UWP app and you can then generate Android and iOS out the back end.
I think you're right, yeah.
One way or the other, but I kind of hope it goes the other way, and it's actually more of a Xamarin form to UWP. I know you can actually do that now. There is a beta for that, but it's not particularly brilliant at the moment.
I think looking at it from an enterprise perspective, Continuum is a great feature that would appeal to businesses, I think. So I think there's definitely that. And as you've said, I can see the Windows 10 mobile platform being just another SKU of Windows 10 continuing on. And I think that's a good thing. And like I say, Continuum is obviously a big deal. But yeah, from a consumer point of view, I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I think so. And Chippy's just mentioned a couple of links he's put into the chat room. So I read the articles he's put about that the Windows Home sort of ecosystem being at risk. So I'll include links for those in the show notes because they are good articles on that and pretty much echo what I was thinking as well. But
Yeah.
so maybe this time. Go ahead.
Sorry, the other thing I was going to say, well, I lost my train of thought a bit back there, but was also the other thing that I think will keep Windows 10 Mobile going is because it's very difficult to, I think I've said before, it's very difficult to develop a personal assistant platform for an OS that you don't own.
Yeah.
So I think that will be another reason why Microsoft will try and keep it going.
I think so. Yeah. I think sharing the code base and everything else means that they can keep it going without it being a major cost, and then therefore it's okay. But I think we're just going to see more Cortana. We're going to see more of the productivity apps and the consumer apps on Android and iOS. And so this time next week I'll be back on Android, at least testing things out. So we'll see how I get on. But I will. Having tested the Groove Music app on my old Nexus 5, it's not a patch on the Windows 10 version, so I'm going to definitely miss that application. I think other things like Microsoft Health and some of the other Microsoft apps are actually better. Well, Health's the same, but there are some other apps which are actually much better, like Cortana we mentioned on Android. So we'll see how I get on next week. But yeah, I may be on that Android next week. I'm missing wireless charging like you would do, Jason.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to that next week. I do want to touch on a couple of things. We've got an email in, but we'll finish the show with. But I do want to mention this rumor. We talk about UWP apps. Now, perhaps as one avenue sort of goes away, another one appears, which is something that I've asked Microsoft to do for a long time now, and I have some kind of consumer set-top boxes, and these have been rumored coming at E3. We may see new Xbox devices.
Yeah, it's difficult to predict what they're going to do. I mean, we still haven't really seen the Microsoft Entertainment apps appearing on other streaming devices, have we? Which is what you would expect to happen, given that Microsoft want their services to be available everywhere. And I think a similar thing, really, that even if Microsoft develop their own Xbox branded streaming stick, where does that fit into an already crowded market? So the only other alternative is I guess a slightly beefier streaming box that is capable of playing Xbox games. I think it's a difficult one because if you're going to be streaming games off an Xbox One, then you already have an Xbox One, so that device probably doesn't appeal to you.
And you can't currently, if you do the streaming, you can't use your Xbox One to do something else, can you? So you couldn't share a device. One child have the Xbox One, and the other one had the streaming set-top version of it. It's 1-to-1, isn't it?
Yeah, but obviously what they could do, and they need to come up with some kind of purchasing model to support this. Xbox One streaming at the moment only works locally. There's no reason why it couldn't run off some Azure-hosted massive Xbox gaming platform. So maybe that's something that would be the kind of key. I think there is a market for kind of casual gaming in terms of Apple TV can play games. I'm sure the Android sticks can do the same. So that's obviously another medium that actually it's not full-blown Xbox games. It's just kind of your kind of mobile gaming experience. I think there's every opportunity for a more powerful Xbox One in terms of offering kind of true 1080p or even 4K video.
Yeah, 4K.
And I think Paul Throat was talking about this, saying that the game itself doesn't necessarily need to change, because that's the risk, isn't it? You build this, you kind of create this divide between the haves and haven't, and almost a two-tier Xbox platform. But if it's just the same game, but on the higher end, the new higher end Xbox One, it's capable of running at 1080p, which has always been one big criticism of the Xbox platform compared to PlayStation. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they unveil, I think.
I mean, I think the sort of rumors of two set-top box options, a stick and like you said, like a slightly beefier box. But the stick itself, if it could do UWP apps, then you could get Netflix on there. You can Groove, movies and TVs.
I don't think that's the critical thing. I think it's got to do UWP to make it worthwhile. And
iPlayer.
And if it does, that actually then makes UWP a bit more attractive.
Yeah, that's what I was. And that answers what we've been saying about the Microsoft at Home. Maybe this does open it up. Yeah. I mean, the Microsoft doesn't really have a very good streaming strategy at the moment. So you've got all your music on Groove Music, and the DLNA story is not very good. And maybe that'd be great if you could just have a stick plugged into your TV and say, right, play this music on my stick to my TV. And if it's like the Xbox, it could even play the video, like you talked about last week, Jason. When if you've got the music pass, then you get the videos on there. So maybe that would be good. And then the other version of it, the box one, would be able to do the remote streaming from an Xbox, like you said. So I think the stick version would be ideal. Although I do think perhaps if you're going to go for the strategy of getting your entertainment services out there, it would be as good just to make the service available on Roku and on other platforms. But you're never going to get this. It's not going to be on a Google Play, on a Google stick, is it? It's on a Chromecast. So maybe you should offer an alternative. And Apple TV does quite well. Chromecast does quite well, but I mean, Chromecast is cheap. So, yeah, I'd definitely like to see a set-top, a little dongle. You can plug it into TV and it can do Groove, YouTube, all the media apps on there. Maybe even Twitter, Facebook, and all the UWP apps on there as well. And I think it increases the scope for of Windows apps. So you can develop one app and it works on the desktop, it works on a tablet, it works on the TV, it works on HoloLens, it works on the Xbox.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because the Microsoft services, as great as they are, I mean, I use Groove, and it's in some ways it's another example of me using something because my heart following my head, and we've now moved to Spotify just because financially it just doesn't make sense for us to use Groove anymore. But when you start adding those things up, Microsoft Music Service doesn't have a good family plan. You look at their movie service, it doesn't support ultraviolet integration. So if there's any movie that's ultraviolet enabled, then I'll buy it from TalkTalk TV. I won't buy it from the Microsoft Video Store. Whereas I believe the Apple Store, I think it's got ultraviolet integration, hasn't it? So it just makes those services, even if they get them spread onto other services, onto other devices, or Microsoft launch their own branded streaming stick, those services are still, if you really look at them and kind of pick sensibly, not based on your heart, those services just don't add up.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, that's the other thing, though, is that I suppose the set-top box could be the one thing that runs all the services. So it could do Groove, it can do Spotify, although I guess it's never going to do Apple Music, is it? It's never going to do Google Play Music. But,
well, it depends if it's an x86 based platform. It could potentially do.
Although YouTube's on the Xbox, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but if you could port the iTunes over using one of the projects, we could potentially see it as a Windows Store app. Whether Apple would actually do that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying, Jason, about the service, and this makes me wonder sometimes. I really do like the interface on Groove. They've done a lot of work with that. Movies and TV is a bit basic compared to Groove, but they've done a lot of work with Groove on the Windows side. But if they go down this enterprise route and more enterprise, I was saying earlier on, does that mean that Groove really doesn't make sense and they should just can that and recommend a third-party one? We'll see. We shall see. But I like the idea of this. So I'm not sure when E3 is. It next week sometime?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think it's early June or mid-June, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing as well, of course, is if Microsoft does have its own stick, in order for it to be competitive, it needs to have other services. It needs to have Netflix.
Yep.
Yeah.
Netflix is easy to get. I don't think there's a device on the planet that doesn't support Netflix.
Yeah, very true.
Getting Spotify and YouTube and whatever, you've got to get them onto the UWP platform.
You have indeed. That's the problem. I mean, we can have Now TV because that's on UWP. We can have Netflix, as you said, that's fine. But we wouldn't get Amazon. We wouldn't get some of the others as well. So
it may be that it's enough to convince Microsoft to say to Amazon, do they have an Amazon app for the Xbox? I don't use it, so I'm not sure.
There's an Amazon Video app.
Yeah. Okay. So they can say to Amazon, look, you've got your app on the Xbox, port it across to this, and while you're at it, just you've got a slight bit of code change, but it'll also work on a billion Windows 10 devices as well. So it could be the other way of attacking the app problem. And then 2 years' time, maybe the app gap isn't there as much because we've got these media-friendly apps that have come via the Xbox route.
Yes, yeah. Also, notice I've just made the exact same point that Chippy did, and in my defence, my Internet Explorer crashed, so I wasn't stealing it. I wasn't stealing your point, Chippy.
Well, I'm looking forward to see what happens with that. Anyway, we'll
Yeah, it could be, I think it'll be exciting announcements, one way or the other.
yeah.
And obviously, the other thing is the rumours of an Xbox One Mini, because I quite like the look of the Xbox One, but it certainly is a bit of a beast under the telly.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, although I shall be frustrated having just bought the kids their Xbox One at Christmas.
yeah, that's true. Just finally, we've got an email from Rob Isles. He says, "Hi all, it's coming to that time. I'm looking at alternatives to Windows 7 Media Center. I still like the Media Center 10-foot interface, and it has great WAF. That's Wi-Fi acceptance factor for people that weren't listening to the early Media Center shows. However, it's becoming unreliable. So what are his options? His key requirements are a simple UI with IR remote control, ability to view, record, time shift live TV, minimum 2 HD tuners, 4 would be a bonus, integration with catch-up services, and easy nav for browser-based contents, TED Talks, Channel 9, etc. Would it be great if it was extensible? Any recommendations on hardware and software? I will probably discuss this more in detail next week, so we can have a think about it. Any listeners can think about it. It's a bit sad, isn't it, that we've got enthusiasts like Rob using Media Center and having to look at either some kind of other solution because Microsoft don't support that upgrade path.
It's such a shame, but
we have discussed this a lot here.
Yeah. Well, Media Portal 1.15 was just pre-released.
Yep. Media Portal, we'll go into more detail probably next week. But Media Portal, Media Browser are worth looking at. Both support TV services. Media MB.
Yep.
I said Media Browser, I meant MB. That's got lots of TV services on there. It's got very nice UI as well. Lots of apps as well for different devices.
Or you could go the Kodi route.
Yeah, and quite a lot of people have gone Kodi and Media Browser. They use this sort of or Media Portal and MB, I should say, because Media Portal for the TV services. But yeah, there's a lot of options available. Plex is also a good option, but probably less support for live TV kind of things. More of a media consumption platform, isn't it? I think MB is probably the closest. Media Portal and MB are probably the two closest.
Yeah.
But maybe some of the listeners have got. But what I forgot to mention during the Xbox chat was maybe we'll see the DVR announcement this time.
Yeah, that would be a huge thing. That would probably be the best option in that case.
Yeah, although because I was just going to say that as well. So the only thing I found with the Xbox One is that there's no way to edit channel lineups. Yes, you can set favorites, but that's per user. So each user that logs into the Xbox gets their own sets of favorites. And again, I can see the reason for that. But I really want the facility to be able to just hide all the channels, because the signal that we receive, we get like 3 BBC Ones and 3 ITVs.
I remember doing that with Media Center.
Yeah, exactly. So it really does need some tidying up, because I have no idea which one to select in terms of the one that relates to us.
Yeah, hopefully that comes into it. But just the recording thing, I think would be nice. I think I'll have to get a hard drive here, because I think they did say you need an external drive, didn't they, to do the TV recording.
Yes,
yeah. So I think I'll have to look at one of those, because although how much I'd use it, I don't know, because I use the Sky set-top box. But it's nice to have it as available option. And what would be much better for me really would be if the one downstairs, the Xbox that's got the TV tuner plugged into it, could do recordings, and it could share it with the kids' devices. Bit like a Sky Q kind of thing. And maybe that's another area that Microsoft look at. But I doubt they'd ever go that far, because of, as we've discussed, TV standards and things like that are often difficult. And I'm not sure they'd ever go to something like Sky Q, that's all these linked streaming systems, and which is expensive as well. That's the other from the consumer side. A couple of things to finish off. We're talking about Plex as well. They've got a new UWP app coming out. So funny, we talk about whether this is enough, but whether UWP platform is enough to keep developers going. Well, it certainly is for Plex. they've not released it yet. They've currently got a Windows 8 One app. There's a phone version and a PC version, but they're asking for testers, so you have to register to go on the sort of list of testers, and that'll be out later this year, I suspect. But they said they'll initially concentrate on the PC with the mobile version coming soon. It's a bit like what you were saying, Gary, there, that there's still a bit of effort to produce the mobile version, even though it is a universal platform.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people have got that as a misconception, that if you do a UWP app, you instantly get the phone app, and you don't. It takes work, and it's going to take work for all these other platforms as well. So
yeah. And as Rob was asking about TV platforms, MB Server's just been updated with improved TV support as well.
Yeah, that seems greatly improved, actually, from what I've been playing with it. So, yeah, definitely worth a look at that.
Live TV is now playable through all the apps, and your parental controls are supported.
Yep.
And, it's great. I'm a big fan of MB, and it is a really nice platform, some nice apps as well. So definitely look out for that. And I think we mentioned that casting on Dropbox last week, didn't we? I think that was in Melissa's story. I think we did, yeah. So I've had that tested. That actually works quite well through the DLNA server. So you can use Dropbox as a storage for your personal video collection, and then stream those on there.
All I want is, I wish Groove streamed.
Yeah, that's what Chippy was saying in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I know he was saying that, and it's really true. I mean, the fact we haven't got a cast to in Groove is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And it was there in Windows Media Player. I should say as well, I've been canvassing around, I'll probably talk about this more next week, but canvassing around people what music services they're using. And actually, just a higher number than I thought are using Groove. Because it's the built-in service and the built-in media player, people with their own media collections are using Groove, and there are some people who then got on to subscribe to Groove, a Groove subscription because of they've used it through there. So actually, probably more people used it than I thought. I haven't got scientific numbers; it's just through comments. I've asked people on Facebook and things. And
yeah, and it was interesting. I mentioned last week I was putting together a playlist for my sister's birthday, and I was basically DJing at that, and we've running a whole DJ rig with my Windows 10 Lynx 8 as the source for it, and that worked really, really well. And people were complimenting me on the system I was using, not really knowing what it was. They thought it was some sort of high-end DJ system.
Yeah. Oh, and I tell you, final thing I want to mention as well. Let's have a look at the Kickstarter that we talked about last week. So what was it when we closed the show last week? Was it 4 million?
4 million last week.
We opened the show with 3 million, closed with 4 million.
Yeah.
Well, it's now on 9.4 million.
Yeah, which is actually a bit slower than last time, but still good.
So 10 million quid raised in a week.
Yeah.
Dollars. $10 million in a week.
Yep.
And there's still 29 days to go. Not bad, that.
That's not bad at all.
So we'll be starting our Kickstarter next week for next week's show. I've got to pay Jason for the royalties for his screenshot of his download button. Yeah. I'm saving up for that one.
Yeah.
I wish I've used again tonight, by the way, Jeff. I don't know.
Yes, I did do that. Yes,
especially for you. Yeah. So we'll be back next week, 9:00 UK time, in the chat room and we'll hopefully have a new build to play with by then. I should maybe have my Nexus 6P to try next week as well. So I'll have that.
We can check our Android phones. I've been playing away with a Huawei P9 for the last couple of weeks, which I actually quite like. So
I might be better then, Jason. I'll have a nice iPhone.
But I'll still have my Windows phone anyway.
Yeah, so will I. So we'll see where my SIM is this time next week. Thanks.
I could bring a new feature.
Where's my SIM? So thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat room, Jonathan, Chippy, and Richard. We shall be back next week. You can follow me on Twitter at ISDixon. Jason, where can we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Database Chase.
And Gary, where can we follow you?
At Gary WA on Twitter, and Fascinating Tech as well.
Excellent stuff. So thanks very much for that, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Bye.